Welcome to a large model Showman'S engine. In this episode, which is part 37, I will be making the footrest arm supports. I wanted the footrest support that fixes to the towing bracket to actually look something rather than just lumps of metal welded together. So I came up with an idea that I think simplifies the whole process, and at the same time will look better. In this episode there is a lot of plane turning, so to make it less tedious and time consuming, as well as helping prevent any viewers from slipping into a coma, I've speeded up all of the sequences where it's just plain turning. And just in case you're interested, the clips are speeded up by 400%, that's 4 times normal speed. I found this small billet of mild steel, and it's very nice stuff, it's machining really well. Facing across the front of it was just to square it up, and now it's fully square, I can continue with the longitudinal cuts. Even at 4 times normal speed, I still had to edit out some of the sequences because this did take quite a long time. The next part of the job is to reverse the piece of metal in the chuck, holding it by the part that I've just machined. Even though I didn't show it on the video, I'd already faced across the front to square it up for when I initially fitted it in the chuck. Now the piece of steel is held by the part that I'd machined. You can see that the end part is not running true. This really doesn't matter, you will see why shortly. At first I thought I would try parting off this piece because I need to split it into 2, but for 3 reasons it wasn't successful. In this clip you can hear it chattering. So why didn't it part off? Well, reason number 1, the parting tool is a very small, feeble one. The second reason is that this chuck, when fitted with the outside jaws, does not have too much of a grip on the work. The jaw area is very small. And the third reason was the amount of nervous tension it would generate in me winding that handle for such a long length of time to push the parting tool all the way through the work. So I went for the easy option, take the billet of steel out of the chuck, put it in the bandsaw and use the bandsaw to saw it in half. With such a small parting tool, I really do not think separating the 2 halves of this piece of metal would have been successful. This is 1/2 of the piece of bar in the chuck. And what I'm doing at the moment is reducing the centre part of the bar to fit into the square section steel tube that fixes to the towing bracket on the engine. This sequence is running at twice normal speed, and I'm trying not to take too heavy a cut. Eventually the part that I've turned is a good fit in the box section. So much so that it doesn't fall off even when I spin it in the lathe. That's one side done. Now to turn my attention to the other side. I turned the other half of the piece of steel bar to exactly the same dimensions. Now I can hold the part by the smaller diameter. It's time to fit the ordinary chuck jaws. By the way, it's very important to put these in the slots in the right order. Every one of the jaws has a number, 1 to 3. I thought these end fittings would look quite nice if I turned a simple design into the face of it, which is the part that you'll see when it's finished. And here is the finished design, very simple, and I'm removing all the sharp edges. Over now to the bench, and you can see the principle. These 2 parts push onto the end of the square box section. I'm going to use 2 pieces of bar, 1 1/4 inches wide by 1/4 inch thick. Once the steel is cut to the right length, it will be welded to the fittings that I've just made in the lathe, and they in turn will be welded to the box section. To make a neat job of it so that the piece of bar can be welded to the footrest supports from behind only, I'm going to mill a slot in each one. So here I'm carefully marking out the position to mill a slot which will support the flat bar. Once again, my marking out is fairly diabolical, but at least I know what it means. As long as the outer edges of the 2 lines equals 1 1/4 inches, everything will be fine. Here's the end cap in the milling machine's vise, and I'm using one of these superb milling cutters. This is a slot drill, and it was sent to me by a man called Michael from Texas. To use a milling cutter of a 1/4 inch diameter to mill a slot that is 1/4 inch wide is something of a new experience to me. The milling cutters I have are either not the right size or they wander all over the place, or both. But not so with this one. It cuts a really good 1/4 inch wide slot. After I'd machined one, I took a note of the depth of cut and machined the second one. And now they look like this. These are the finished footstep supports. Or at least there will be when they're welded to the parts that are made in the lathe, and of course after I drill and thread a hole in them to take the foot pegs. I drilled the holes in the pieces of steel tapping size for a 1/4x26 thread, and here with my really useful reversible ratchet tool I'm cutting the thread. In this episode I was going to make the foot pegs, but I have a bit of a problem. The other week via eBay I bought a pair of motorcycle foot peg rubbers, and I put them in a safe place for when I needed them, and now I can't remember where that safe place is. When I find them I'll make the foot pegs. The pieces of metal with the writing on are just templates so we get the right angle when my friend Bob Brocklehurst comes over on Thursday evening to weld it all together. And that's it for this one. I'd just like to say, stay safe, stay well, thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.